Hi, I'm Suzanne Beecher, author of Muffins and Mayhem, Recipes for a Happy, if Disorderly, Life. I want to share with you one of my favorite recipes. You'll also find it in my book. It's called skunk beans. If you're going to a potluck, if you have a family dinner, skunk beans is definitely the thing to serve. I serve skunk beans at every holiday meal. In fact, it's become a family tradition. This is the easiest recipe to make, and people just rave about it. So it's not the usual recipe that you see people showing you how to make something. The main ingredients is a can opener, and 3 cans, a little bit of brown sugar, a little bit of ketchup, some vinegar, some dry mustard, salt, a little dash of garlic, salt or garlic powder, bacon and onions, and you've got yourself a pot of skunk beans. So the first thing I did was cook the bacon real crisp, and you don't want to be afraid to get it very, very crisp. You need 8 strips of bacon, and I always make a few extra. Those 3 are for my BLT after I'm done here. Cook the bacon real crisp, and then you just want to chop it up so it's in, bite-size pieces. You cook the bacon first, real crisp, and then take the bacon out, set it on some paper towels, like I did. And then you chop up your onion, and you can cook your onion in the leftover bacon grease, which makes it very tasty. I have substituted one time some ground pork instead of the bacon, crumbled it all up. And I thought it tasted pretty good, but my family wasn't as crazy about it. They wanted me to go back to the regular recipe. Okay, so you get the bacon all chopped up, and then comes the hard part. We're going to open the cans. You need a can of lima beans, and you're going to drain these. Doesn't matter what kind of lima beans. Sometimes you'll see large or small. It doesn't matter. You need a can of kidney beans, and those can be dark or light. Again, it doesn't really matter. And once you've made the recipe a few times, you could even experiment with some other beans, if your family likes some other types of beans. And you're going to drain the juice off of these. So I keep a colander handy in the sink. And there's always a few beans that stick to the bottom, so rinse that out. And then you need a larger can of pork and beans. It's like the next size up. I'm pretty sure it's a number 2 size can, but let me just show you the difference so you can eye it in the store. And not every store carries it, but you see how that's a little bit bigger? You want to look for that size can. Worst case scenario, you could buy a can like this and then a really small can of pork and beans, and you'd have about the same amount. This has a pop top. Life is getting simpler. We don't even need the can opener. And we are going to drain those too. See, I forgot. And you don't have to worry about the extra sauce here. You're just going to get most of the liquid off of the beans. And then simply dump them in the casserole. And the next thing we're going to add is a half a cup of vinegar. Now, I started making these today, and what happens sometimes, I didn't have regular vinegar. I just had apple cider. And for these beans, it doesn't really matter. You can use either one. So if you have regular vinegar, go ahead and use that. If not, you can use apple cider vinegar. And we're going to measure out half a cup. This is my favorite measuring cup for measuring liquids because you can have it on a flat surface and look down at it, and you can see the measurement instead of ending up, going like this and trying to make sure it's flat. So we're going to add the vinegar, and we're going to add the ketchup. There was a half a cup of ketchup. Like I said, this is the simplest recipe. I took this took these skunk beans to a potluck. Well, actually, it was more than a potluck, kind of a fancy dinner at one of our neighbors. And everybody was supposed to bring a dish to pass. And I brought my skunk beans, and in the middle of a meal, a chef at one of the major hotels here, like, you know, the Hilton or one of the big hotels, he stood up and he said, "Who made these beans?" And, "Oh, I did." "Well, these are the best beans I've ever had." So that's how good the beans are. He was really impressed. And then we're going to add the brown sugar. And it calls for a cup of brown sugar. And once you've made the beans once, if you want to use a little less sugar, you can. But actually, a cup doesn't seem to be too much for my family. Then you're going to add just like a dash of garlic salt. I like to add garlic powder instead, but again, that's whatever you like. And we're going to put a little bit of salt in, like half a teaspoon of salt. I've got these already measured out. And then we're going to put in some dry mustard. And I think it's like a quarter teaspoon. You'd think I'd know this recipe by heart. And if I had the right glasses on, you know, I wouldn't have to keep picking up the recipe card. But these were more stylish. Okay, and truth be told, when I'm measuring this, because I've washed my hands, I usually kind of tap it and measure it off, but, you know, you can pretend you didn't see that, but you can do it any way you want. It's the easiest for me. Add a little dry mustard. And at this point, I just mix up the beans a little bit, just to get everything stirred up. You know, when we ate a lot of beans when I was a kid, so it's funny, every time I make these beans, I think of the song I used to sing when I was a kid. My dad had this, I don't know, my family was into beans, and, you know, my dad always did the old pull my finger joke sort of thing. But anyway, pork and beans were a regular on our table. So every time I saw beans being served, I'd start singing, "Beans, beans, the musical fruit. The more you eat, the more you toot. The more you toot, the better you feel. So be sure to eat beans with every meal." I think that's the ending. Anyway, eat a lot of beans. And now every time you make this, you'll think of that song. Stir up the beans, and then we're just going to add the bacon on the top. And we're going to add the onion. You just want to saute the onion just so it's soft. You can see just one onion, like a medium-sized onion. Chop it up so it's in bite-sized pieces. And you simply stir everything together. You've preheated your oven if you're going to make them right away, and we're going to bake it for 1 hour with the lid on, covered, and then we're going to take it off for another half an hour, pull the lid off, and it'll kind of firm up in the last half hour. And the nice thing about these beans, too, because I do make them for a holiday, so a lot of times I'll mix them up ahead of time and put them in the fridge. Sometimes I don't cook them off ahead of time. Other times I do. I do all the baking ahead of time, put them in the fridge, and I let them sit at least a day, because I think they get better. And then they're easy to warm up in the microwave, you know, because your oven is usually really busy around the holidays. So that's it. That's all there is to making skunk beans, and I guarantee you'll get rave reviews. Bye.